The blast tore through the night like thunder. Sirens wailed as agency guards scrambled, weapons raised, eyes wide with fear. Sombra was dragged down a hallway, shoved toward a steel-reinforced panic room. But it was too late. Through the smoke, masked figures surged in with military precision. Their weapons bore no serial numbers, their uniforms no insignia. But the insignia scrawled on the wall after the firefight left no doubt. A crude sun, scorched into the concrete with fire. The mark of the Cartel de los Sols. Gunfire erupted. Agents fell. Sombra, pressed flat against the wall, fought the urge to panic. One of the attackers locked eyes with them, a flash of recognition, almost reverence, before he raised his weapon. But instead of firing, he whispered something under his breath. "Stay alive. We still need you." Then he vanished into the smoke. When the chaos subsided, Sombra found themselves in a convoy, whisked through empty streets under cover of sirens. The attack had been precise, deliberate, meant not to kill, but to send a message. Hours later, as the agency reviewed the carnage, a grim discovery surfaced. The attackers had bypassed biometric locks, security codes, and surveillance. Only someone on the inside could have provided that access. A mole existed among the foreign operatives, and Sombra's safe house had been compromised from the start. The realization chilled everyone. But for Sombra, it was worse than betrayal. It was confirmation that nowhere was safe. In Washington, the attack ignited panic. Closed-door meetings stretched into dawn, intelligence chiefs clashing over strategy. The Cartel de los Sols had crossed a line, striking on foreign soil with impunity. The solution was desperate and risky, a covert alliance between U.S. agencies and select European counterparts. Their goal was not guns or raids, but money. The cartel's empire rested on hidden accounts, shell corporations, and billions funneled through offshore havens. Sombra, seated at the long oak table in a room that smelled of old leather and fear, watched the officials argue. They wanted Sombra's knowledge of cartel routes, codes, and communication networks. But each question felt like a trap. Each answer, a potential death sentence. Still, Sombra complied, feeding them details of ghost accounts the cartel used to wash its money clean. One by one, assets began to freeze. Funds vanished from secret accounts. Panic rippled through cartel ranks. But Cabello struck back. In Caracas, ministers loyal to him denounced foreign interference. Offshore lawyers filed injunctions, delaying freezes. And then, just as the agencies celebrated progress, a chilling discovery surfaced. One account remained untouched. Hidden in plain sight, it funneled money not only to the cartel, but to political campaigns, arms dealers, even respected officials in Europe. A ghost account. The linchpin of the cartel's survival. If it was exposed, the cartel would fall. If it wasn't, governments around the world could collapse with it. And when the screen flickered with the account's true owner, a silence gripped the room. It wasn't Cabello. It wasn't even Venezuelan. It was someone with power far greater. The revelation of the ghost account rattled everyone in the room. Men who once boasted of ironclad alliances now shifted uneasily, glancing at one another with suspicion. Someone at the table was dirty. There was no other explanation. The agencies agreed on one thing. Sombra had to be moved. The cartel's reach had proven vast, and with the ghost account secrets out in the open, their desperation would only grow. Plans were made for a covert extraction from Washington to a more secure European facility. But the plan never reached execution. On a rainy night, as black SUVs wound their way through the streets, the convoy came under attack. Explosions ripped the lead and rear vehicles apart, boxing in the transport. Gunmen in unmarked tactical gear swarmed from alleys. The firefight was brutal, fast, and precise. Amid the chaos, Sombra caught a glimpse of a face, someone they knew. A foreign operative, one who had been part of their protective circle for months, now stood shoulder to shoulder with cartel mercenaries. The betrayal was no longer theoretical. It was flesh and blood. Dragged from the smoking wreckage, Sombra fought, kicking and clawing, but a needle plunged into their neck. Darkness swallowed them whole. When Sombra awoke, it was not in a sterile safe house or an agency holding cell. It was a shipping container, the walls damp with rust, the air thick with salt. The distant roar of waves told them all they needed to know. They were no longer free. The cartel had them. The container door creaked open, flooding the darkness with harsh light. Figures stepped inside, cartel enforcers, their faces obscured by balaclavas. Behind them, a man in a tailored suit entered, the faint scent of expensive cologne clashing with the stench of rust. "Welcome home, Sombra," he said in Spanish, his voice smooth, almost mocking. They strapped Sombra to a chair, the metal cold against their skin. The questions began, sharp and relentless. Names. Codes. Operations. Who else knew? Which accounts were frozen? Who betrayed them? But Sombra had prepared for this moment long before. Instead of surrendering truths, they offered carefully crafted lies, half real, half invented. Each answer led the interrogators down false trails, feeding the cartel disinformation that would send their rivals chasing shadows. 4 days, the game continued. Sombra endured sleepless nights, electric shocks, psychological tricks. Still, their resolve held. Until one evening, as exhaustion dragged at their mind, a single slip escaped their lips. A phrase, innocuous to most ears, but damning to the cartel. The interrogators froze. A slow smile spread across the suited man's face. "You've been lying to us," he whispered. The lights snapped off. The room plunged into darkness. From the blackness came a single sentence, spoken with lethal calm. "You've just signed your death warrant." The Cartel de los Soles wasn't just a criminal enterprise, it was an institution. Embedded within Venezuela's military and political framework, its operations were as covert as they were expansive. From the highest echelons of power, orders flowed seamlessly, masked by the facade of governance. General Cliver Alcala Cordones, once a revered figure, had become a symbol of the cartel's reach. His eventual confession unveiled a network that spanned continents, implicating figures previously deemed untouchable. Limzy Salazar, a former security chief to both Hugo Chavez and Diosdado Cabello, made a daring escape to the United States. His testimony was explosive. Detailed accounts of drug shipments, clandestine meetings, and the inner workings of the cartel. Salazar's revelations painted a damning picture, placing Cabello at the helm of the Cartel de los Soles. The U.S. government, armed with this intelligence, intensified its scrutiny. Sanctions were imposed, assets frozen, and international warrants issued. Yet, within Venezuela, the cartel's grip remained unyielding. Amidst the turmoil, whispers of a double agent began to surface. Known only by the codename Sombra, this individual was said to operate within the highest levels of the Venezuelan government, feeding information to foreign intelligence agencies. Sombra's intelligence was precise, leading to the interception of drug shipments and the exposure of covert operations. However, their identity remained a mystery, protected by layers of deception and misdirection. A sudden shift occurred when a major drug shipment was intercepted off the coast of Honduras. The operation bore the hallmarks of the Cartel de los Soles, but the precision of the interception suggested insider knowledge. Within the cartel, paranoia surged. Internal investigations were launched, and loyalties questioned. High-ranking officials disappeared, some found dead under mysterious circumstances. A breakthrough came when intercepted communications hinted at Sombra's identity. The messages pointed to a senior official within the intelligence apparatus, someone with access to sensitive operations and the trust of the cartel's leadership. The revelation sent shockwaves through the organization. Trust eroded, and the once cohesive cartel began to fracture. Allies turned adversaries, and the internal power struggle intensified. Realizing the imminent danger, Sombra initiated an extraction plan. Coordinating with foreign operatives, a covert operation was launched to evacuate the double agent from Venezuela. The mission was fraught with challenges: surveillance, checkpoints, and the ever-present threat of betrayal. Yet, against the odds, Sombra was successfully exfiltrated, leaving behind a trail of chaos. In the wake of Sombra's departure, the Cartel de los Soles faced unprecedented scrutiny. International pressure mounted, and internal divisions deepened. The once formidable organization found itself vulnerable, its secrets laid bare. But the story was far from over. Sombra, now in protective custody, held information that could dismantle the cartel entirely. The world watched, waiting for the next revelation. The safe house was supposed to be invisible. Hidden behind the facade of an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Miami, it was guarded by layers of security and overseen by men and women who swore loyalty to the agency. Yet Sombra could feel it. Eyes on them, whispers in the static of the radio, the subtle tightening of the noose. It began with a news broadcast. A seemingly ordinary anchor on a late-night Venezuelan channel adjusted his tie and delivered the headlines in monotone Spanish. But in the background, behind him, a subtle pattern emerged, a sequence of flickering lights, arranged in groups of 3, then 2, then 5. Morse code. Sombra froze. The message was unmistakable. "We know where you are." He confronted his handlers, but they dismissed it as paranoia. "No one knows this location," one insisted. Yet later that night, the agency's encrypted feed was breached. On one of the secure screens, a single phrase appeared, typed in bold red letters. Sombra's pulse quickened. If the cartel had penetrated the safehouse's veil, then the enemy wasn't outside, it was inside. Every knock on the door, every passing car, every flickering light bulb carried the weight of betrayal. The double agent felt a creeping certainty settle in their bones. The cartel had infiltrated foreign intelligence. The question was no longer if they would come. It was when. And when the first explosion shook the outer perimeter, Sombra had their answer. But death did not come swiftly. Instead, chaos erupted. On the outside, the Cartel de los Sols was imploding. Rumors of ghost accounts had spread, sowing distrust among the ranks. Mid-level commanders, fearing they'd been cut out of the empire, began turning on one another. In Caracas, entire neighborhoods descended into firefights as factions splintered. Foreign agencies seized the opportunity, intercepting communications and pushing propaganda to deepen the fractures. In 1 week, the cartel lost more ground than in a decade of warfare. Inside the container, Sombra sensed the shift. Guards grew careless, arguments broke out in the corridors, and whispers of defections reached their ears. One night, a masked guard slipped inside. Instead of violence, he pressed a finger to his lips and whispered urgently, "I know who you are. I know what you've done. And I don't want to die for them." He handed Sombra a burner phone and a slip of paper with numbers scrawled on it. "This will connect you to someone who can help," he said. "But know this, Cabello is not the man you think he is. He answers to someone else." The words struck like a thunderclap. For years, Cabello had been painted as the head of the snake, the king of the cartel. But if he was not the ultimate power, then who was? Before Sombra could ask, gunfire erupted outside. The guard shoved the phone into their hands. "Decide quickly, freedom or death." And as the container doors burst open, smoke and bullets flooding in, Sombra realized the truth. The cartel wasn't just unraveling. It was being torn apart by something far larger, far darker, than anyone had imagined. The hunt for El Fantasma became an obsession. Intelligence agencies across the world scoured records, photographs, and intercepted calls. Yet every lead dissolved into smoke. He was a man with no fingerprints, no official past, no traceable existence. Sombra joined the search reluctantly, their knowledge of the cartel's internal networks proving invaluable. Time after time, their leads guided raids that uncovered weapons caches, laundering hubs, or compromised officials. But never him. Until one evening, as Sombra flipped through old surveillance files, a face stopped them cold. It was a photograph from years ago, taken during a diplomatic reception in Caracas. There, smiling among Venezuelan generals, was a man in a gray suit with a glass of champagne in hand. His face was unremarkable, almost forgettable. But Sombra recognized him instantly. Not from the cartel. From their past. The memory hit like a knife. Training exercises, whispered conversations, an ally who had once gained Sombra's trust. He had vanished years earlier, assumed dead or retired. Yet here he was, alive and pulling the strings of an empire. "El Fantasma," Sombra whispered. The revelation was like a poison in their veins. If this man was indeed the Phantom, then his reach extended not just into Venezuela, but into foreign intelligence itself. A decision was made. A sting operation would be staged in Colombia, designed to draw him out. Everything hinged on Sombra, the bait that might finally unmask him. But deep down, Sombra couldn't shake the dread. Hunting El Fantasma meant confronting a ghost from their own life. The operation unfolded with surgical precision. A luxury villa outside Cartagena was seeded with false intel, baiting El Fantasma with promises of untapped cartel funds. Hidden cameras and strike teams surrounded the compound. Sombra sat inside, disguised, every nerve taut. Hours crawled by until headlights finally pierced the night. A convoy of black SUVs rolled in. Men emerged first, disciplined, heavily armed, their movements more military than Cartel. Then came him. The man from the photograph. Even through the tinted glass, Sombra felt the old familiarity, the chilling recognition of someone they once trusted. The signal was given. Strike teams advanced. The villa erupted in gunfire, glass shattering, walls collapsing. For a moment, it seemed the trap had worked. But then, everything unraveled. Explosives hidden beneath the villa detonated, tearing through walls and scattering the strike force. The ambush had been anticipated. Reinforcements stormed in, overwhelming the foreign operatives. Screams filled the night. Through the chaos, Sombra locked eyes with him. El Fantasma. He smiled. Not in triumph, but in something colder. Calculation. As smoke swallowed the compound, his voice reached Sombra through the din, calm and deliberate. You cannot hunt a ghost. And then he was gone. When dawn broke, the villa was nothing but ruins, bodies scattered among the debris. Dozens of operatives were dead, the mission in shambles. For Sombra, the truth was undeniable. El Fantasma hadn't just evaded capture. He had orchestrated the entire trap. And now, he knew Sombra was hunting him. The ruins of the Cartagena villa still smoldered when the first whispers spread. The Cartel de los Sols was fracturing beyond repair. Mid-level commanders were fleeing, defecting, or dying. The streets of Caracas, Maracaibo, and Valencia echoed with gunfire as rival factions carved up what remained. In this chaos, opportunity arose. Sombra, now sheltered in a fortified agency compound in Madrid, received word of a captured lieutenant, Diego El Gavilan Morales. Once Cabello's enforcer, Morales had switched sides, swearing loyalty to El Fantasma. Now, betrayed and desperate, he offered a bargain, his testimony in exchange for asylum. The meeting was arranged in a secure basement beneath the Spanish intelligence headquarters. Morales sat across from Sombra, shackled but smiling, as if he knew he still held power. You want El Fantasma, he said, leaning forward. I can give you names, dates, accounts. But I don't talk unless I walk free. Sombra studied him. Men like Morales thrived in shadows, trading loyalty like currency. But his words had weight. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photocopies of documents, bank transfers, coded communications, photographs of secret meetings. At the bottom, one page bore the unmistakable signature of a foreign diplomat, proof that El Fantasma had allies at the highest levels. The room fell silent. This was no longer just about the cartel. This was about governments. Before Sombra could push further, the lights flickered. A sharp crack echoed through the room. Morales stiffened, his smile fading. Blood bloomed across his chest. A sniper's bullet. The documents scattered to the floor as agents scrambled. By the time the lights stabilized, Morales was slumped lifeless in his chair. Someone, somewhere, had silenced him. The last words he spoke clung to Sombra like a curse. El Fantasma is not who you think he is. With Morales dead, the fragile balance snapped. Venezuela descended into open war. The streets of Caracas became battlegrounds. Convoys of black SUVs roared through avenues, cartel gunmen clashing with military units that had once protected them. Explosions lit up the skyline at night. Civilians huddled in their homes, caught in the crossfire of a shadow war that no longer hid itself. International media broadcast the carnage, images of burning neighborhoods and mass graves flooding the world. Sanctions tightened, embargoes expanded, but the violence only escalated. Within the cartel, paranoia reigned. Commanders assassinated one another in their sleep. Armored trucks carrying cash vanished into mountains. Entire drug shipments were burned rather than risk capture. For Sombra, it was a nightmare unfolding in real time. From the Madrid compound, they monitored intercepted communications, fragmented calls of commanders begging for protection, soldiers switching sides for bribes, families fleeing across borders. But amid the chaos came one chilling pattern. Diosdado Cabello, once the face of the cartel, had vanished. No sightings, no statements, not even a whisper of his presence. Theories spread. Some claimed he was dead, executed by El Fantasma to erase the old order. Others whispered he had fled to Russia or Iran, taking billions with him. But one intercepted message caught Sombra's attention above all. Cabello has been marked. He will answer before the Phantom. The word suggested something darker, that Cabello wasn't just missing. He was being hunted. And if Cabello was captured, tortured, and broken, then the last barriers between El Fantasma and absolute control would fall. The war wasn't just tearing Venezuela apart. It was paving the way for the rise of a ghost. As the screens flickered with more burning streets, Sombra clenched their fists. The question no longer was how to stop the cartel. It was whether the world could survive El Fantasma's reign. Madrid. 3:14 a.m. The burner phone Sombra had kept since Bogotá vibrated against the nightstand. Only one number could reach it. They answered in silence. On the other end, a voice spoke. Familiar. Caracas. Tomorrow night. The old presidential palace. Come alone. The line went dead. It was him. El Fantasma. The palace was a ruin, its marble floors cracked, its gilded ceilings darkened with smoke. Soldiers once marched here in Hugo Chávez's time. Now only shadows moved through the corridors. Sombra entered cautiously, weapon hidden under their coat. Every step echoed, every creak of decayed would a warning. In the grand hall, a single chair stood beneath a shattered chandelier. And in it sat the man, the ghost, the myth, the betrayer. El Fantasma, Sombra whispered. He rose slowly, smoothing the lapels of his suit. He was older now, but unmistakable, a former ally from Sombra's early years, a man thought lost to the chaos of wars past. "You shouldn't look so surprised," he said with a faint smile. "You of all people should know ghosts never stay buried." Sombra leveled their weapon. Why? Why build all this? Why the cartel, the blood, the chaos? His answer was chilling in its simplicity. Power. Control. Venezuela was never the endgame. It was a proving ground. A theater where governments could be bought, armies tested, and the world reminded that ghosts shape history more than men. He stepped closer, his eyes burning. "You think you fight for justice. But every move you've made, every secret you've leaked, has played into my design. You froze Cabello's accounts, dismantled his power, fractured his men. You cleared my path." Sombra's chest tightened. The realization hit like a blade. Every sacrifice, every ally lost, every desperate act had been part of his plan. Gunfire shattered the silence. Strike teams stormed the hall, agents in tactical gear flooding through broken windows. The palace became a battlefield. In the chaos, Sombra and El Fantasma locked eyes. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just them. Then he whispered, barely audible over the gunfire. "You can kill me now. But if you do, you'll never stop what's already begun." Before Sombra could react, he hurled a flashbang. Light consumed the hall. When the haze cleared, El Fantasma was gone. But in his place, on the chair where he had sat, lay a single folder. Inside was a map. Not of Venezuela. Not of South America. Of the Middle East. And scrawled across it in bold red ink, Operation Dawn,